What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, well, you see, we've had a bunch of rulings, official rulings made by the lovely folks over at Fantasy Flight Games regarding Keyforge, and since there are new rulings out there, it's kind of my thing to talk about these kind of things. So, let's have a gander, shall we? Starting off then, what happens if you are moving a creature in a battle line? Do you have to move it? So, a couple of examples. Molephin is 5 power 0 armor creature, and when you fight, you may move an enemy creature anywhere in its controller's battle line, and then if it's on a flank, it captures 1 amber from its own side. Cool. Or we could instead look at Thorium Plasmate, that lets you move an enemy creature anywhere in its controller's battle line. Well, what if you don't want to move it? Fine. You see, these cards let you move it anywhere in the battle line, so move it to the spot it's currently in, absolutely fine. Now, similarly in terms of Molephin, what if you wanted to keep it on the same flank, so it captures an amber? Fine. If something makes you move a creature to a flank and it's already on a flank, you're absolutely fine, ladies and gentlemen. You're absolutely fine. What about unstunning a creature? Now, for those of you that don't know, when a creature is stunned, you basically have to use it during your turn in order to unstun it. You don't get to fight, you don't get to reap, you don't get to use an action. You use it, it gets unstunned, and then next time, you can use it normally. What if it's not of the active house? So what if you've got a Snufflegator that's stunned, but it's not an untamed turn? Well, the ruling is anything that would allow you to use that creature, you're good to use. So Dominator Bauble is an artifact, a dis-artifact with an action that lets you use a friendly creature. Fine. Not a problem. Use it, unstun Snufflegator, off you go. What about something like Ghost Talk that doesn't let you use a creature? All it lets you do is reap with a creature. Again, absolutely fine. You go to reap, you can't reap, you're stunned, so you unstun instead, and then Snufflegator is unstunned going into your next untamed turn. Although, to be fair, Ghost Talk, is an untamed creature anyway. But the point is, any creature, anytime it would be used, whether that's reaping, fighting, or using as you like, will allow you to unstun that creature, even if you're only allowed to reap, only allowed to fight, etc. What about Creed of Nature? Now, Creed of Nature is one that was always going to lead to some awkwardness. It lets you, well, it's an artifact with an Omni ability, you can use it regardless of your active house, whereby you sacrifice Creed of Nature, and if you do, you reveal a creature from your hand, choose a creature in play, and for the remainder of the turn, the chosen creature gains a text box of the revealed creature. Now, generally speaking, this is absolutely fine. So, if you choose to copy Snufflegator, I love me some Snufflegator, then the creature would gain Skirmish, you're good. But what if it's something like Shorty? Now, the reason Shorty is important and relevant here, it has got what we refer to as self-referential text. That is to say, Shorty, when you reap, does not enrage this creature, it enrages Shorty. So what if you use Creed of Nature to copy Shorty? Well, what you do is you essentially rephrase a self-referential text. So rather than having a Snufflegator that when you reap enrages Shorty, you have a Snufflegator that when you reap enrages Snufflegator. The self-referential text is essentially reread to refer to the actual creature rather than the creature that it is copying. There we go. Now here's one that's not going to come up very often, but you can see people trying it on, really. Armageddon Cloak, again we're talking self-referential text, is an upgrade, and when you put it on a creature, this creature gains Hazardous 2 and Destroyed. Fully heal this creature and destroy Armageddon Cloak instead. It is referring to this instance of Armageddon Cloak. Now, it is a rare, so there aren't many people out there that have decks with multiple Armageddon Cloak, but there must be a few. You are not allowed to, let's for instance, put an Armageddon Cloak on your Snufflegator because you really want to keep Snufflegator alive. Okay, fine. More sensible example, Ember Imp. That's the one that limits your opponent to playing 2 cards during their turn. It's absolutely brutal if you can keep it on the field. So what you do is you put an Armageddon Cloak on Ember Imp and then on another creature. What you're not allowed to do is when Ember Imp would be destroyed, sacrifice the Armageddon Cloak on your other creature. The Armageddon Cloak that gets destroyed must be the one that is on Ember Imp. You cannot just keep destroying other Armageddon Cloak. It is referring to this Armageddon Cloak. Lovely. Now, how about warding? Here's an interesting one. We now have the concept of tagged for destruction. When a creature is essentially destroyed, what we do is we tag for destruction, and then we go about our business, and then at the appropriate time, we destroy that creature. So what happens if a creature is tagged for destruction and then warded? Now, I believe something like Hapsis would fall down here, but if you've got a better example, whack it in the comment section. After an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Hapsis, you ward it and draw a card. Well, okay. Well, what happens if Hapsis and the other creature are both destroyed? What essentially happens is they're tagged for destruction. Oh, hang on a second. Warding Hapsis. Doesn't help. You see, warding will prevent you being tagged for destruction. But once you are tagged for destruction, even if you then get warded, wouldn't count, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen. You would still go away. Sorry. Here's another one that I think should be fairly obvious, but you know people are going to try it on. Pain Reaction. You see, Pain Reaction is a card, it's an action, and you deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. If this damage destroys that creature, deal 2 damage to each of its neighbours. And the argument here is, well, if it's been destroyed, it has no neighbours. Clearly, that would make the card, well, it would just be deal 2 damage to a creature. With an amber bonus wouldn't be terrible, but it clearly would defeat the point. So you essentially read it as, if this damage destroys that creature, deal 2 damage to the neighbours before it was destroyed, or something like that. You don't get to argue, hang on a second, my creature's been destroyed, it has no neighbours. That would be a little bit silly. Now, I love me some Molephin. Molephin makes me happy. Molephin's a great creature. Molephin reads, it's got hazardous free, and after amber is stolen from you, you deal 1 damage to each enemy creature for each amber stolen. Alright. Well, what if there's something like a Gargantodon, for instance? You see, Gargantodon says each amber that would be stolen is captured by a creature controlled by the active player instead. So, if you would steal amber, but Gargantodon's out there, so instead you capture it, does Molephin deal damage? No. Molephin deals damage after amber is stolen. Gargantodon stops it being stolen. Nothing has been stolen. Therefore, no damage from Molephin. But I still love me some Molephin. Now, Replicator's a fun one, but it leads to some issues. You see, Replicator, 2 power 0 armor creature, and when you reap, you trigger the reap effect of another creature in play, as if you controlled that creature. Well, let's say, for argument's sake, you've got Professor Sutterkin. And Professor Sutterkin's got a reap skill, draw a card for each friendly Logos creature. The more Logos creatures you've got in play, the better. Well, what if Professor Sutterkin has an academy training? When you reap, you draw a card. Well, now all of a sudden, you've actually got 2 reap skills. So when you reap with Replicator, do you get to use Sutterkin's skill and academy training? No. Because if we go back to the wording of Replicator here, the wording of Replicator is rather clear. Trigger the reap effect of another creature in play We are dealing in singular here. We are not dealing in multiple. You get to choose which one you use, but I'm afraid you only get to use one. Sorry about that. Speaking of only choosing one, Jargogle. Jargogle seems like one of these creatures that was basically destined to have annoying rulings associated with it. Jargogle comes along, and it's a very complicated creature, right? You see, what happens is, when you play the creature, you put a card from your hand face down under it. And when it's destroyed, if it's your turn, you play the card. If it's your opponent's turn, you archive the card. What if you've somehow got multiple cards under Jargogle? Choose one. There we go. You don't get the rest, you get the one you choose. Nice and simple. Kompsos Haruspex, one of the weirder named creatures that we've got. Each friendly creature's play effect is a play/reap effect. What if it's a play/fight effect? Now, it's already a play, we're good. But do you only gain it as a reap effect if it is purely a play, or if it is a play/fight, do you get to have it as a reap instead, as well as? So take something like Pharaoh Centurion. When you play or fight, you capture an amber. If there is a Kompsos Haruspex on the field, does that turn into a play/fight/reap ability? Yes, it does. Absolutely it does. Which is a good thing, right? It makes Kompsos Haruspex quite a bit better. And let's finish with a complicated one. How about that there Gub? Now, Gub is a 1-power creature, but while it is not on a flank, it gains +5 power and taunt. Cool. Well, what if you've got 3 Gub down and nothing else, and Throwing Stars gets played? Now, Throwing Stars is an action card that deals 1 damage to up to 3 creatures, and you gain 1 amber for each creature destroyed this way. How much amber do you get? Because essentially what happens is the 2 on the flank are 1-power creatures, they get destroyed by Throwing Stars, you get 2 amber. That is not even an issue, we're fine with that. What about the one in the middle? Because at the moment Throwing Stars is played, that Gub is a 5-power creature. It's not destroyed by Throwing Stars, you don't gain an amber. But then the creatures either side get destroyed by Throwing Stars, which means they go away, which means Gub is then on its own, not on a flank, goes down to a 1-power creature, has 1 damage on, gets destroyed. Was it destroyed by Throwing Stars? No. Essentially, the 2 on the end, on either flank, are destroyed by Throwing Stars. That's easy, you get the amber. The one in the middle has 1 damage done by Throwing Stars. And then when the flank Gubs go away, the Gub in the middle is destroyed. But that's not the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. So all 3 Gub would be destroyed, but you would only get the 2 amber. So there we go. Shout out to the lovely Keyforge people for giving us some lovely new rulings. I like talking about new rulings. Hopefully they all made sense. But if any of them didn't, if I've missed anything, let me know in the comment section and I will get to them. And tell me what you think about all these rulings. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk Keyforge and a whole bunch of other games. And do please consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all that fun stuff. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.